Hey, what's up everyone? So I'm a licensed professional counselor. I've been out of school for a while now, and today I'm just gonna look back and see whether I still remember the basic principles of Psych 101. So we're gonna pull up a Psych 101 review exam and see if I remember some of the stuff that I learned probably 15 years ago at this point. See if I still know my stuff. Let's get into it. All right, we're on Very Well Mind here. Let's just go through this multiple choice test, see how I do. All right, could you pass Psych 101? Let's see. Psychology originally emerged from what two disciplines? Wow, I don't even remember learning about this. Okay, so let's see. Anthropology and history, that doesn't sound right. Biology and medicine, that could be, but those two sound really related. Philosophy and biology, I think biology's there in one of those, so I mean, I do feel like early on with Freud and some of those guys that like they were just throwing whatever ideas they had about how people worked at the wall and see what stuck. So I think philosophy more so than medicine, especially with the biology piece. Like early on, what was it called? Like phrenology, when they would feel people's skulls and see like what character traits they had based on that. That seems kind of pseudo biological. All right, good start. Number 2, the unconscious mind plays an important role in which school of thought in psychology? Yeah, psychoanalysis for sure. This was what Freud was talking about. A lot of the unconscious desires with the id, the ego, and the superego, particularly the id when you're talking about the unconscious desires. The variable that is manipulated in an experiment is known as the, okay, let me think. This is like middle school science. Independent variable, I want to say. I think the dependent variable is what you measure based on the changes in the independent. Nice. Which type of research study takes place over a long period of time, often lasting months or even years? It's not cross-sectional, that's actually a moment in time across a population. A longitudinal study. Before researchers conduct a study, it is important to inform consent? Oh, sorry, form a testable hypothesis. Yes, we need to test something before we get informed consent from our participants. Which area of the brain is associated with reasoning, motor skills, higher level cognition, and expressive language? Oh, I was never good at parts of the brain, or I never really committed that to memory. But I think it's the frontal lobe, because again, that's kind of where, especially in adolescence, that's kind of later to develop, and so that's why we see a lot of difficulty with risk assessment or risk-taking behaviors, especially when it comes to adolescent guys. Which area of the brain is responsible for controlling hunger, thirst, emotions, temperature, and circadian rhythm? Okay, so not the frontal lobe. I want to say it's the hypothalamus. I think that's where a lot of like kind of the temperature gauge for the body is, making sure you're at homeostasis and things are regulated. In classical conditioning, the learned response to the previously neutral stimulus is known as the... Okay, let me see here. So the previously neutral stimulus, so if you go back to the Pavlov's experiment with the dogs, this would be like the bell. Previously it wasn't connected to anything, but now when he rang the bell, the dogs would salivate. So the learned response, so we're talking about the response, conditioned response, I want to say. Okay, so in operant conditioning, the removal of an unfavorable event or outcome after display of behavior is known as... Oh, so operant conditioning is like when somebody does something, then something happens. So, I mean, after the display of a behavior, removal of an unfavorable event. So that is... so removal is a negative reinforcement, because reinforcement causes the behavior to persist because it is being rewarded. So by removing something that they don't like, you're actually reinforcing a negative. Again, for those of you taking Psych 101, positive and negative is not about good or bad, it's about introduction or removal of a stimulus. The nature versus nurture debate refers to whether early experiences are more important than later experiences. No, not that. Whether genetics matters more than environmental influences. Yeah, I would go with that. In Freud's theory, which part of personality is focused on fulfilling the most primal and basic urges? Yeah, that would be the id. So that's again, yeah, the most primal and basic urges, and then like the super ego is kind of the conscience that's like, this is the ideal, what you should be like, and then the ego, I think, is supposed to manage or regulate between the two. Which stage of psychosocial development focuses on developing a greater sense of personal control? I mean, I guess that would have to be autonomy versus shame and doubt. I guess it could be initiative versus guilt. I think autonomy, though, if we're talking about personal control. I haven't studied up on this stuff. According to Piaget, the process of taking new information into our previously existing schemas is known as... Ooh, this is big when it comes to trauma work. If we're talking about like trauma-focused CBT, cognitive processing therapy, things like that. Talking about how we add new information such as a traumatic event into our existing schemas, and sometimes it just blows up our existing schemas. I want to say, so accommodation, I think, is when you adjust the existing schema. So I think it's got to be assimilation. What is at the peak of Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Social needs, self-actualizing needs. Funny story, I remember one of my professors saying that Maslow put himself at the top of self-actualization, that he was one of the few individuals in world history who was self-actualized. In the theory of multiple intelligences, people who are good at communicating verbally and resolving conflicts have interpersonal intelligence. Cognitive dissonance occurs when people become overexcited, people lack motivation to achieve their goals. I mean, that could actually be a situation where you run into dissonance, but I don't think that's the answer they're looking for. Beliefs and behaviors conflict in some ways, definitely the right answer. All right, 100% correct. Awesome. So I want to go back to the cognitive dissonance piece, because when people lack motivation to achieve their goals, that can actually be dissonant for them, because they're saying, I want to achieve this, I want to do my homework, I want to study or whatever, I want to practice the piano, but I don't have the motivation to do that. And again, that's like their behaviors conflicting with their beliefs or their stated goals. And maybe that's a little more specific than what the test was asking for, but I'll take that for what it is. Well guys, thanks for checking out this video, going down memory lane with me and seeing if I still got it from my undergrad days. Seems like I'm still doing okay, but that doesn't mean the journey of learning is ever over. Still gotta do continuing education, gotta stay on top of that, make sure I still keep up with the latest research, not just what I learned back a decade plus ago. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Check out our other content. I'll see you next time.